Today, we're going to be looking inside this mystery beige box PC. Let's get started. I got this PC a little while ago in a lot of other ones, and I've just never really done anything with it or even investigated it. It's kind of gotten sidetracked by other projects, but now is its time to shine. So taking a look on the front of the case, as we can see, we get a regular floppy drive, and we also get a CD-ROM drive which is missing the door, so I'm probably going to replace this one. And just get a look at this case, isn't it a pretty nice design? It's borderline between being a full tower and a mid tower. I'm not sure what exactly you'd call this, it's kind of like a hybrid. Anyway, turning the computer around here, as we see on the back, we actually have some really early rear I/O. So when you see PS2 ports next to each other like that, instead of being on the top, you can tell pretty much straight away that you're gonna have a really early ATX motherboard, since the port layouts wasn't really standard yet. And also the lack of onboard audio, and also that it has all black connectors, that kind of tells us that it's a really early motherboard. Now, as for what it could be, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe a Pentium Pro, I'm thinking. I'd like a Pentium Pro, I don't have any Pentium Pro systems. But who knows? Looking down on the case also, we have a PCI video card. Now we can tell it's PCI since the connector is upside down. And then we also have an ISA sound card. And we can tell it's ISA because the connector is facing up. And then we have a network card in the middle too. So the rear of this PC really doesn't tell us what it is. I'm either guessing it's a Pentium Pro or a Pentium machine. So enough speculating, let's actually take a look inside the system now and determine what this lovely PC is. So it's only got 4 screws holding it in on the back, and this is exactly how I got the tower. I haven't messed with it at all. It's really interesting that it doesn't have any stickers on the front. Generally, PCs from around this time period were boasting whatever they featured, so it's rather odd that it's pretty bland on the outside. So let's actually see what this thing is. Alright, so let's lift the lid off. And actually, one thing just while we're here is the fact that it has an AT power switch. Well, it's like kind of an AT power switch. It's a soft power switch, but it's in the style of an AT one. That's really interesting. Alrighty, so now let's turn the PC around and reveal what's actually inside of it. It looks pretty intimidating, first of all. This could be the layout of a Pentium Pro motherboard. Have a look at that actually. We have an Intel TX chipset by the looks of it. So that means this is not a Pentium Pro at all. This is a Socket 7 motherboard. But ATX Socket 7 boards are super neat, and something which I don't have many of. So yeah, it's really nice to have another one. And this PC comes with the original hard drive too. We also get an ISA sound card with an ESS chipset. And our PCI video card appears to be an S3 one. And then we just have a Realtek network card. Now, I'm thinking this is going to be a Pentium CPU, but if you actually look closely in there, if the camera will focus, we can see that it's actually a Cyrix CPU. At least it has a Cyrix cooler, so that tells me it's probably a Cyrix CPU. So maybe if we just remove some of these cables quickly, just like so, and wow, this is terrible placement for cables on a motherboard, but that doesn't matter. So if we just remove these quickly, as we can see, yep, we definitely have a Cyrix cooler on there, which is rather interesting. I don't actually have any experience with Cyrix machines. I've never used them, so hopefully this one will be pretty good. Now, we also have all the EDO RAM slots full, so that tells us this would have been a pretty beefy system for its time. And we also have unpopulated SD RAM slots, so maybe I'll see about putting some SD RAM in there, since it will definitely be a lot faster than this EDO stuff. And over here we also have onboard cache. That's probably like a megabyte or something, because there's 2 chips on there. And there is our north bridge for the TX chipset, if you can see that. And yeah, that definitely says TX. So yeah, this is actually like a really decent motherboard. I'm super happy with it. And as we can see, what I've just noticed now, we actually have, this motherboard appears to be an SL56A5. And Soltech generally put SL as the first letter of their motherboard models. So yeah, this is probably a Soltech motherboard. Soltech make really good boards, so this is definitely a nice one to have. Let's pull the expansion cards out and get a closer look at them now. So we'll take the ISA sound card out of here first of all. This is an ESS card. ESS cards generally have good DOS compatibility and they function all round really well, but they're not my favourite, and I do definitely prefer Sound Blaster cards over these. We have an ESS audio drive, model ES1868F. So if that's any good, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll just use this card in a build someday. Alright, let's check out the video card next. We have an S3 Trio 64. Nice! These cards are really decent 2D ones, and they definitely work well in combination with something like a Voodoo 2. S3 cards are pretty stock standard, and you know, the Trio 64, it's just a 2D card, but it performs really nicely in 2D, and you know, when used in combination with a 3D accelerator, it just works really well. So yeah, I'm definitely going to leave this card in the system. It's a really nice one. And for anyone who's interested in the Ethernet card, even though it's nothing special at all, here it is. It's just a Realtek card. You know, it's pretty typical for the era. You know, it probably works great. But yeah, serves its purpose, so that's really nice. Alright, so I want to investigate this CPU a little further. I'm not sure exactly what Cyrix chip is under the hood here, so let's get a closer look. I think if I just go like that, yep, there we are. Moment of truth, what have we got? Can't really see, so I'll just take it out of the socket. A Cyrix 686L P200 Plus. Now, something interesting about Cyrix chips, and I know it says IBM, but trust me, it's the Cyrix one. Something interesting about Cyrix chips is that although it says P200, it actually runs at 150 megahertz. Now, what the P200 means is basically that it has the equivalent performance to a Pentium 200. I find this really hard to believe, because when it comes down to the actual megahertz clock speed, you really can't lie about that and say that it's on par with a Pentium 200. As far as I know, it doesn't work like that. Maybe Cyrix did something special, who knows. But as far as I'm concerned, this is just a low-end 150 megahertz CPU. The P200 Plus rating is a bit of a joke, really. More of a marketing gimmick than anything. Either way, though, I've never really messed with Cyrix stuff, so this is really going to be an interesting chip to try out. But for now, let's just reinstall the CPU, and we'll put this little Cyrix cooler just back where it came from. Alright, there we go. And the only reason I'm really leaving a Cyrix CPU and an Intel TX chipset, and it may seem weird to do that because you're better off with a Pentium 233 probably, is that it has this really nice little Cyrix cooler on it, and I've never seen that before. So I guess keeping it intact with how it is originally is something which I don't do often, but I think in this case it'll be really cool too. So yeah. Alright, so before we try out this system, which we intend to do, I'm going to go ahead and switch out the power supply. Alright, so I've got the power supply unplugged here, so now if we just just easier to take it out. Alright, now our power supply is totally disconnected, so we can simply just remove it like so. If this power supply isn't overkill, I don't know what is. This is a 650 watt Corsair power supply. but it's what I have available, so I guess this will just have to do. Now, one thing which is important to know is that modern power supplies don't have as much amps on the 5 volt rail. So on this one we actually have 25 amps because it's a bit of an older power supply. But on modern ones you'll only sometimes have 20 amps. Now anything below 25 is generally going to be a bit underpowered, so it's really good to have 25 or more. Alrighty, but now that that's done, should be good to install the power supply. Alrighty, now this is going to be about our correct positioning. Alrighty, and there's our power supply installed into the case. Now what we need to do is plug it into the motherboard first of all. Actually, while we're here, I'm going to replace the CD-ROM drive with another one, so yeah, I might as well, so. And there we go. Just like that, our dodgy CD-ROM drive is free. This one's actually an Acer brand. Not sure what speed it is, but yeah, it looks to be a decent drive. I'd totally keep it in here if it wasn't for its missing fascia plate, which is a real shame. I'm gonna go grab another drive, 1 minute. Alrighty, so I found our candidate drive, and this is going to be an 8-speed CD-ROM. Now this is made by Samsung, and it has a date of 1996. I've done some research on this system, and it actually appears to be from 1996 too. So this drive is going to match it perfectly. I'll just quickly plug in our CD-ROM drive again. So ID cable just goes like that, quite simply. Put that there. Now I've left one for our CD-ROM drive, of course, so that just goes in there. Alright, and I totally forgot to film me installing the cables on the hard drive and CPU cooler and floppy drive. So here they are now. Yeah, there we are. Nice. Alright, so now that we've gotten our power cable and power supply installed, I'm going to plug in all of our drives again. Okay, so I think in the current state that it is, this system is ready to power up, and yeah, well look, we'll just see what happens. Alright, so this is going to be the first time powering up the system. Set it up with some basic peripherals here, and then I'll press the power button and let's hope that it works. And that CPU fan sounds shocking, but it appears to be working. Nice. So it appears we have 64 megabytes of RAM, which is just insane. And it's detecting the CD-ROM drive and everything. So let's see what's on the hard drive and whether it'll actually boot. I plugged the keyboard into the wrong PS2 port. Okay, with our keyboard plugged into hopefully the correct PS2 port now, let's see if we can get it to boot. What OS have we got? Let's check. Windows 98, okay. And I can hear the hard drive seems to be working nicely. Now, I don't intend to look through the previous owner's contents at all. I just simply want to see if it boots. Alright, now we don't have a mouse, so, you know, that's that. But it should still work. I just want to see if we can actually get into an OS here. And I don't know if this CD-ROM drive works, but yeah, it appears to be pretty good, so that's nice. Alright, and we have someone's name there, so we'll just press escape. And it's building a driver information database. Alright, and here we are on the desktop. That's awesome. So there doesn't appear to be much things, But I'm going to go and grab a mouse real quick and fire up the PC again. So yeah, it appears that our PC is working. So that's really awesome. Now, I'm going to load up some games on the hard drive real quick and set it up a bit nicer. So let's do that. Okay, Quake's installed. So now we're going to be going into Quake. Now this is just the shareware version, of course. And as we can see, it runs pretty decent on this machine. It's really hard to see, actually. I'll just try and turn the brightness up on this monitor a bit. There we go, hopefully that's a bit better. But as we can see, in software mode, Quake runs pretty well. But I definitely see room for improvement here. Well, that's about it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed investigating this mystery beige PC and then giving it a few quality of life upgrades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.